Behalf. I'm really excited to address this huge topic of climate in the next 20 minutes. I'll be specifically focusing on climate solutions since that's what I do basically at Demos Helsinki think tank. I'll have a special emphasis on partnerships and specifically I'll lead you through a study that I find very inspiring. But before that, let's have a look at my life. First of all, really recently, I've been wondering why most of the cars I see passing my bus stop are nearly empty, just with the driver. And also, here is where I live. This is my home. Last week I was thinking I'm going to have a pipe construction at my home, and I was thinking, why on earth is my home still heated like I lived in the 60s? And thirdly, me shopping, perhaps not at the H&M anymore, but still very frequently, and the majority of stuff and items that I buy brand new, even though I wouldn't like to. So, just out of curiosity, how many of you have been thinking about these same themes? Just raise your hand. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm not the only one thinking about these practical matters. I'll get back to these questions related to my little microcosmos a little bit later. But now, before that, let's jump to the macro level. A milestone, a huge milestone. Now we have the highest concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in millions of years. And you know what? It's not a reason to celebrate. Why? It's because carbon dioxide is one of the primary greenhouse gases. And now, what is that greenhouse gases do is that they heat our planet. When we reflect greenhouse gas emissions to different types of climate scenarios, we can now see that based on the estimates, emissions are heading now towards 4 to 6 degree increase in temperature. And that's a lot. By 2100, it would be a catastrophe. We cannot let that happen. At the same time, it's really good to remember that Finland has committed to decrease its emissions by, from 80 to 95% by 2050 from the levels of 1990. So this is about where we are currently at. In this story, we all know the bad news. And the bad news is that we still don't have the global climate, binding climate treaty. Now next, let's look at the development of prices of our very essential natural resources. Natural resources are very much linked with the emissions. That's why we go and look at these. This is a graph showing the price index for 33 critical commodities from fossil fuels to minerals. It was pulled together by the McKinsey, and it can be seen from this graph that from the wake of Industrial Revolution until the millennium, prices have been going down steadily. Of course, there are some exceptions, some shocks in the prices. You can see it's because of the World War I or II or the oil shock. But the trend is very clear. Now, something happened in the millennium, and now the economists are saying that this is the very first time that we can see that the scarcity is actually impacting the prices, having an impact on the prices. This is something that people call as a paradigm shift. They say that this curve will no more bend down in the long run, in the long trend. Now, a good question is that when the supply of these natural resources shrink, will this be happening? Life expectancy, wealth, well-being, innovations, love? Well, probably not. However, things are changing, and they are changing really fast. And now the bottom line is, what changes the most? The answer is in here. Homes, mobility, and food. These are decisions that these decisions are related to. The decisions related to these domains represent nearly 80% of the emissions that households cause. 80% of the emissions that households cause. Now, if everybody used natural resources as much as we Finns do, we would need like 3.5 Earths to make sure that there is enough natural resources for everybody. That's quite a lot. Because of that, climate change does not only change this, production, and make it more efficient. It's not just about that. It's actually a lot more. It is about how we perceive the ways we live in the future, in our homes, and the ways we move about, and also very much what we're going to eat in the future. Okay, now remember the target level of 2050, which basically means a carbon neutral society. It has a huge implications on our lives. So in mathematical terms, the jump is actually best predicted and depicted in this graph. It shows the material footprint of an average European, which is now about 30,000 kilos per person. This is where we should go, to 8,000 kilos per person by 2050, when we want to reach the sustainable society. Now, we have some time, of course. It's 35 years from now till 2050. But it's a really short time, you know. It's just one generation of time to make this huge jump. Now, how will that change happen then? How will future lifestyles look like? And what are the ways to enable them in the future? EU Commission asked us to look into these questions in this Spread Sustainable Lifestyles 2050 scenario work. This was done in collaboration between several institutions, like research institutions like Politecnico Milano and then Lund University. And then, of course, we had some corporate partners as well, from Henkel to IKEA to Nokia. And why I want to show this to you is that I think it really nicely depicts also the macro level changes, but also shows how our lifestyles can actually change from now by 2050, and how on earth can we find different types of pathways to reach those goals that we have. So I'm going to lead you through the scenarios very quickly. In case you got interested and would like to know how we differentiated the scenarios from each other, go to the website spread.demoshelsinki.com. So all the material is over there. So this is the first scenario. It's really like about lifelong learning, automation, resource circulation thanks to upcycling economy, as well as leveraging big data. Here are just some bits of lifestyles, what sustainability could mean in very concrete terms. Of course, these bits are very much imagined, but at the same time, these types of lifestyle changes and bits could, of course, take place as well. The next scenario, another bit about food. How should we eat? What are the ways to eat sustainably, seasonally, and vegetarian-based food? The next scenario is about the local economy and how the local economy could work. Material circulates in this one in local loops. Cradle to cradle basically works. All the resources are utilized in very efficient ways. As well, there is a very strong service economy in this scenario, and technologies are very much locally adapted, just like in this lifestyle bit that we wrote. Again, it's basically imagined, but actually it already takes place in several countries around the world. Renewable projects in local communities. Then the third lifestyle, the third sustainable lifestyle scenario, this one, it's called global loops, if I remember correctly. In this one, the role of digital economy is very important. The Internet of Things makes sure that resources are utilized in optimum ways. Participation via different types of digital platforms gives people a voice in different arenas, and so forth. Here's the lifestyle bit of an active home, which basically optimizes energy usage and all types of natural resource usage without you needing to do anything. So it's a smart city that works and enables lifestyles to change. Now I wanted to show you these scenarios because they quite nicely indicate that achieving sustainability goals require a lot of effort. There are a lot of different opportunities for different types of actors. It's not just about one sector or one technology, but it's about all types of opportunities for different types of industries and all types of actors. So now to make that happen, we need, of course, the public sector to be part and involved, but we need many other parties as well. It's quite nicely depicted in this citation set by the City of Helsinki. They say basically that by working alone, they can only achieve like 20% of their climate targets if they work only alone. Now, the good question is then, what about private sector? Of course, companies play a key role, and they don't want to be involved just because of the feel of guilt or the idea that they think that they should be polishing their reputation. No, not at actually all. The story is now changing, and I find that very inspiring. Companies know that sustainable lifestyles, the green economy, is a huge opportunity for new innovations that drive also the economy forward. And indeed, there are already like really interesting business cases around. For instance, this one, Airbnb. We all know the peer-to-peer home rental service. It's basically really inspiring, this question: what if we never needed to build and heat any new hotels, because we can use people's homes much better, for instance, for touristic reasons? And Nest, who knows the company Nest? Raise your hands. It's a company, it's an intelligent thermostat company that was bought by Google a year ago with $3.2 billion. Can you imagine a thermostat company being valued that high? It basically optimizes energy consumption and minimizes home CO2 emissions automatically. Now, even though there are these promising cases and that companies are actually developing currently, it's not only companies who can make the change happen. It's not just the companies alone who can make the shift happen towards the green economy. And this is very well stated in Mariana Mazzucato's recent book, The Entrepreneurial State. In her book, she states that there is a need for innovation ecosystems that bring companies like old and new, states, municipalities, and individuals together. So Mariana is one of the persons speaking for creation of these types of ecosystems enabling green economy. I find that book very inspiring because she uses data from the 60s and 70s from the US, basically showing how crucial it was for the whole ICT sector and later on for the digital economy that the state played a key role in the risk-taking. Before the investors could jump in, the state played a key role in terms of developing the critical technologies in ICT sector. So it's also, like, thanks to the state involvement, Apple got its critical technologies from like Siri to GSP to touchscreens on their products. She shows that with the data really nicely in this book. So now, the innovation ecosystems, the green innovation ecosystems, how to build them. I'm now going to tell you about an initiative which is going on in 3 Nordic countries. It's Demos Helsinki's acceleration program. It's still going on, so I don't yet have results for you to tell, but I'll tell you about the approach and how we've done this thing. So the objective is to create an innovation ecosystem in which sustainable lifestyles can materialize. So the question is, how to transform urban areas built several decades ago to enable sustainable mobility and housing. As we know that these are the very pressing domains. These are the domains that cause a lot of emissions. How can we change that in the infrastructure that was already built several decades ago? What are the business models and partnerships, we asked in this project. So it is really about like developing cities in novel ways. Namely, we try to create like new solutions, enable new services, creation of new products to facilitate people's sustainable everyday lives. And why this is needed, this facilitation is needed, because these different parties, the startups, the public sector, and the citizens, they don't yet know how to collaborate with each other. They don't know. They even probably haven't identified each other as relevant and potential partners. So these sustainable lifestyle practices in this slide, you can see, they are advanced in many parts by like local communities, like startups and local dwellers. They are like the bits of lifestyles that I showed you in the scenarios, the ones in here. And what is needed is the linkage of these actors in here to the actual built environment, to all around in the cities, to actually make those interesting bits to scale up. But the problem is right now is that these guys in here don't know how to deal with these guys in here, the traditional gatekeepers of built environment, including cities, vendors, construction companies, architects, sales, etc. What we aim to do in this Smart Retro project is to find the missing link between these actors, to bring them together, to create new concepts, and thereby enable scaling up sustainable lifestyles. This is how we did it. Like we started first mapping startups, companies, municipalities, states, community leaders, and then we brought them together in 2 innovation camps we've already had and organized. We wanted to underline that it's not everybody wants to solve like the world's biggest problems like climate change. Not everybody is part of the program because of that. And you know what? I'm really glad that it is the case, because I really want the companies to be there because they find this as an important driver for their future innovations. And then after that, it's all about co-creation with startups and all these different actors. So the work is going on right now in 3 countries, in Finland, in Sweden, and in Norway. And you know what, when scaled, we're organizing these test beds. We already had these innovation camps where we basically were creating different solutions. Now we're testing them with local people in different areas in the cities of Lahti, Stockholm, and Oslo. So you know what, when scaled, I hope that I no longer need to think about my choices and their impacts on the environment. I really don't want to do that. I really want somebody else to think those things for me. So this is what it's all about. You know, these are not just things nice to have. It's really critical in our journey towards sustainable futures. So I think I spent my 20 minutes. I hope you have a lot of questions. Thanks a lot at this stage. And don't hesitate to ask any questions. Thanks.